And now we're getting into the gray area of where it gets really difficult to know how much to try something or when to try something. I'm a big fan of like trying and failing fast and cheap. And so
it's their catchphrase right there.
Yeah, fail fast and cheap. I love that catchphrase.
Hello and welcome back to the Net Gains Podcast, presented by Chief Marketing Dad and Digital Position LLC. Shout out to the brand new Data Pulse, just launching today, actually.
Nobody has any clue what that is.
It's like
they don't need
to.
Yeah.
Well, if you need help with your PPC metrics and SEO metrics, dude, we have the tool for you.
Nice, dude.
I am joined, as always, by my co-host extraordinaire, Mr. Roger Parent. What's going on, baby?
Good to talk to you, brother.
How's life?
Doing well. Life is great. Kids are good. Weather's good. I just can't complain, you know?
It's funny because I heard a lot of complaining before the red light hit to start this podcast.
I complain a lot about you. But it's the only sore spot in life.
I know. Speaking of sore spots, things that we have to block out. That's what we're talking about today. Blocking out the noise. I came with. I'll just turn it over to you. What are we talking about with blocking out noise?
Well, I think one of the topics we've talked a lot about mental toughness from the aspect of narrative forming and how we think positively, and we're giving people a lot of tactics and strategies to perform better in the clutch and grow their careers and improve their relationships. But it's still a lot. And I think you go onto like TikTok or Instagram or anywhere, wherever you digest your social media, and there's so many people telling you different things. You know, take this supplement, try this workout routine, think this way, you're too soft, you know, and I think we're almost adding to that in a way, but I think in a way that is like personally successful and more realistic than kind of like these get rich quick things and get fit fast and lose 50 pounds in a week type of thing. So there's so much out there, right? And how do we simplify and determine what to actually follow and not follow? Because everyone I meet swears by completely different things. So I think I want to have sort of an open discussion with you around how do we reach good conclusions that work for us?
Well, let me ask you a clarifying question. Do you mean in terms of being selective in what you listen to? Do you mean in terms of blocking out some of the more toxic stuff? Like, what is this question referring to exactly?
Good question of the question. I think that it's. I think
narrow it down, baby.
Yeah, I really do think that it could be both. It could be around choosing what to surround yourself with, like what to even digest in the first place, and then as you're digesting, how to choose which things to actually put into practice in your life, right? Because not everything's going to resonate with each person. So how do you go from 100 videos that you digest on how to be a better volleyball player, get it down to like 5 videos, and then be like these 3 things, or let's say 5 creators that you follow, and then within those creators, how do you determine like which tactics apply to your game? And that's just a sports metaphor, but I think it applies to everything.
Yeah, I think it's important to start out too saying there's no real one right way for the most part, right? I mean, everyone's a little bit different. Everyone has a different mindset in some way or another. So something that works for me is totally different than how it works for you. And that's actually something that we've come across a lot in our relationship, where it's like we'll be saying the exact same thing, but we can't phrase it the same way. And so we're arguing about like what this path is, and we're saying saying the same thing. We realize it later. So anyway, long story short, what I'm saying is everyone kind of visualizes things different and learns differently. So whatever works for you, that's the right path. I think is the way to do it. But an
But
answer,
how do you choose? Like, how do you choose what works for you? How does each individual choose what works for them?
yeah. So an answer to your other question, I think the accolades of the person you're listening to are very important. Like when you were talking about the sports example, I've seen countless instructional videos on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. And the ones that seem to resonate with me better, I know the athlete who's talking about it. I know they're actually good at what they do. In the same way that when I do research for digital position, the people that I'm reading, they have had success in their own careers, and they're not just people who are talking and sound good on a mic and can say things in an eloquent way that sound catchy, right? So I like to know that the person that I'm learning from has already done it themselves, and they can lead me down a path of success because they know what success looks like.
That's a great point. I want to add to that one thing that has worked really well for me has been to find very specific specialists. And what I mean by that is I was trying to work on, there's a shot in pickleball called the Ernie, where you like jump over the kitchen and you hit it out of the air. Like you jump sideways, if you can imagine.
I don't know what
being
any
like,
of that means. Jump out of the kitchen?
Yeah, sorry. There's like a non-volley zone in front of the net that you can't walk into unless the ball bounces or whatever. So you can't like stand at the net and just slam the ball straight down. And so you are like 7 feet off of the net, but you can jump over the kitchen sort of diagonally over to the sideline and hit the ball out of the air. So I want to get better at this shot, but I'm watching a very specific player. His name's Tyler Loong, who is a lefty, 6 feet tall, similar to me, similar build, scrawny and skinny, and he's very good at this shot. And so he's known for this shot. So I'm watching him when it comes to this shot, but then I'm watching other people when it comes to, when I'm doing a third shot drop, which is another shot, I'm looking at Ben Johns, another player. And so for me, when you talk about people that have the expertise, it's not even like you need to listen to someone that's just the best pickleball player and broadly do everything that they're doing. You can specifically choose the skills that they are best at and other people are best at, and block out the noise by focusing on like, I'm going to emulate this person who's well known for it, probably the best in the game at this one skill. Does that make sense?
I think that's an amazing call out, because very rarely do you have, if we're just sticking with the sports analogy, very rarely is a player a 12 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 at every single skill, right? But maybe they have this one skill that they're a perfect 10 out of 10 at, and that's their go-to skill. And you can watch that, replicate it, take bits and pieces. Another player has a different skill. You watch that one, learn from that one. So yeah, I'm totally on board with finding what each player is best at and then learning from that thing that they are the best at to make yourself better in each of those areas.
Yeah, if you think about it from like a business perspective too, like if I want to learn marketing, a marketing generalist probably isn't the best thing, but I would want to learn from like a paid social specialist and a Google Ads specialist and an SEO specialist, and learn from the best who live and breathe that thing every day. Just like if you were to go see a personal therapist, they have like marriage counseling for couples. They have personal sports psychologists. They have personal therapists that specialize in depression and whatever. They like. I think that it's important that you block out the noise by trying to find people that can truly understand the more narrow view things you're trying to improve about yourself.
Let me ask a quick sidebar here. So Kent Steffes is a guy who I've watched some of his training videos on YouTube. He's a gold medalist for beach volleyball in the Olympics. He has some interesting training techniques, I'll say, that I had not heard of before. And I don't think I would have tried them unless I had known he was a gold medalist. But I've tried them, and a lot of them are like, playing with yourself against a wall, but just in different ways that I hadn't, for example, like we pass, we always do forward, but he talks about kind of working on the opposite side and passing on the opposite side, because that's still your inside arm has to do it the opposite way, but we always do one arm passing the straight way. Anyway, not the point. But the point is, I don't know if I would have trusted this weird training technique unless I knew his resume. So how do you differentiate between someone who is or isn't an expert, even if they're saying the same quality of stuff? Do you listen to somebody unless they are an expert?
Yeah, I think at that point, so there's the obvious specialist stuff that we just talked about, and now we're getting into the gray area of where it gets really difficult to know how much to try something or when to try something. So once I feel like I have something that I'm interested in, like, ooh, that looks like an interesting, different way of doing it, I'm a big fan of like trying and failing fast and cheap. And so,
It's their catchphrase right there.
yeah, fail fast and cheap. I love that catchphrase. For example, I was trying to develop my pickleball backhand, and I might have told you this already, but I tried like 4 different ways of doing it. And then I was just like taking film of myself, and I thought of a bunch of different ways and like watched the different ways from different people, and I just experimented with it. And then I eventually realized that like I really should have the two-handed backhand, and like that was the shot for me. I was hitting them way more consistently. It felt more natural to me and better, and so I just needed to work on that shot. So then I like cut out the rest of the noise once I experimented with it. So in your instance, I think it's that authority gave you the feeling like, oh, maybe this is worth exploring. I think you explore it, you try it, and give it a real shot and try to mentally say, I'm going to go into this being like completely objective and see if it can help improve my game, and give it a practice or two, see if you feel like you're improving with it. And if not, it's okay to scrap it. But you don't want to not try anything and think you know everything. And you also don't want to stick doing that training way for a month and just set yourself back trying to obsess over something you're never going to use. Right? So it's like there's that sweet spot of like a day to a week of like, give it a shot, give it a good shot, and then filter through it if it's not working for you.
Yeah, and you kind of have to be okay with that weird feeling when you try something new, because the first couple practices, it always feels awful. And then it's like, oh
So
my God,
bad.
this is so stupid. I feel terrible. Like you're probably losing games or playing games. But I think a week, 2 weeks is, I think, a good sample size at that point. You've got enough practices where you know if it's just, you have probably learned the skill by this point, and now it's either just working for you or it's not working for you.
I think it depends on the importance of that element too. Like having a good backhand ground stroke in pickleball is extremely important if I ever want to get to the professional level in singles. And so it took me like 2 or 3 months to make that decision of like just drilling all of them to learn. And my backhand just control got better by experimenting and playing with it. But I got to a point where I'm like, I need to pick a lane now. Like I'm starting to get frustrated and like I don't know what to do. But it's so important. It's an important skill. Now, maybe another skill is something you can play with for a day or two and be like, all right, that's kind of like a weird, funky, odd shot that gets used 1 out of every 300 balls. And it's like a fraction of a percent that might make me better. Don't spend 3 months trying to train that because you're going to lose sight of your broader game.
Okay, cool. So that's the first piece of blocking out the noise, where you try to find the expert in this field, the specialist, learn from them, and then block out the rest, right? So talk to me about the other piece, which is kind of what I had assumed, where you're getting a ton of feedback, or maybe you're getting negative feedback, or people are coming at you and you need to block out the noise and focus on what you know is right. So talk to us about that one.
Yeah, this is a super tough one because we have so much noise all the time.
Especially with social media, the connectedness through your phone, it's crazy.
Yeah. So like, I think you block out the noise first by choosing what skills you want to improve at. So you have to like figure out like, why am I losing points in this game? It might be because of, man, every time the ball goes to my backhand, I'm just losing the point, right? Like at least identifying what the actual problems are first, and then finding a specialist in that is really good at that skill, and then going through the training process. But I think the the hard part is like even starting it, because and what I've found is if you're willing to source enough feedback, if you're getting the same feedback from a lot of people, it's probably legit feedback. But as soon as the feedback from people starts to get really, really all over the place, that's when you know you're probably getting to a really good spot, and you can probably have more authority over what you should be focusing on. Right?
Yeah, we talked about this in our Perfectionist podcast, where if the feedback is the same, that means it's probably real. If you're getting a bunch of noise about fix this, and none of it's the same, at that point it's their own biases. So then you block out that noise.
Yep. And I think you recently went through this with your footwork a little bit, where I think I told you your feet are too wide. Someone else told you to widen them up a little bit. And then you kind of went around and sourced from a bunch of experts. And I think you've felt like, classic Roger's right. And
everyone gets lucky now and again. Yeah.
Your feet are a little too wide, right? But it takes a kind of a variety of perspectives, and you sourced from a bunch of different people. You didn't just blanket listen to one person, and a bunch of like really very good players, and you came to a conclusion, but you didn't spend months training it one way or the other and just blanket listening to this person because they're an influencer.
Yeah, and then I think listening to your body is important too. So I tested out a practice with narrower feet on serve receive, and I felt like I was moving better to these balls too. So like you have to kind of source the feedback and then understand what your body is feeling too. And I think that's another piece of blocking out the noise, where in the end you have to trust what your body feels and what your instincts are. And if you just can feel that something feels right, then I think that's the time to block out the rest and then trust yourself.
Yeah, and then like there's also so much preference within there. Like, yes, maybe you don't want to have super wide feet, but like how narrow? It's like, shoulder width, a little bit narrower than that, a little bit outside of that. That's where it's like, okay, you just really have to play with that a little bit and find the right sweet spot there. But generally speaking, maybe you were just too wide.
Yeah. So then in terms of blocking out the noise from other people, do you have strategies for that?
Yeah, I sort of feel like, hey, no matter what, everybody's a critic. And
yeah,
like humans are naturally judgmental. I mean, we go around and we make judgments about everything. We're consistently judging people as we walk by them. I mean, it's sort of like everybody's in denial if they say, like, I'm a non-judgmental person. I don't everybody judges everything as like it's sort of human instinct to make judgments as we all walk around.
The double whammy of that is that humans also want to be accepted and they want people to like us, right? So not only is everyone judging each other, but we're also very sensitive to being judged because we all want to fit in. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I think that knowing that exists and saying like, hey, like the world is tough. Like people are always going to be criticizing and giving me feedback or even just like quietly judging me. I think that there has to be an ability to have the confidence to be like, that's always going to exist no matter what. Even Tom Brady was getting criticized like crazy left and right? And it's just like every year, this is his last year, he's done, he can't do it anymore. Like no matter what level you're at, if you are bottom of the totem pole or the very best to ever do it, you will still be criticized throughout the path. And so I think just acknowledging that fact, that that's going to exist, will help you. I almost want to say you don't even need to shut out that noise. You simply need to harness it, leverage it, and say, like, I'll show them.
I'd kind of go the other way with it too. I mean, if you have a healthy relationship with that stuff, which it sounds like you do, great, like no problem. But I think it's so easy for us as humans to ruminate on that and think about what was the conversation that I had earlier? What was this person thinking about me? The insecurities that a lot of us have. Meditation is just so great to help yourself stay present, stay in the moment, and not worry about these other things. I mean, that's like the number one tool that I would recommend if you have trouble blocking out the noise and blocking out the thoughts the insecurities that you're worried about from other people. meditation and the practice of being present and mindful, I think is huge to block out that noise.
I was going to ask you about that. Like you're a big like mindfulness woosah type of guy that just like you go out and on like mountains and stuff and just like go hiking and like and then all of a sudden your mindset is fixed for the week. Like what do you do? Like how do you do that? Because like for me it's definitely a constant battle of just being able to like even just quiet my mind down in general. That's constantly overanalyzing. You seem to have just like these tactics of just like really disconnecting from life for a little bit, getting everything in perspective, and then coming back to competition.
Yeah, I think we have it in different ways. I have like a mind that just I daydream all the time. My thoughts go all over the place, and I think back to previous things and future things. I feel like you're the other way, where you're just so hyper focused. You have trouble being present because you're so hyper focused on a task, if that makes sense. So, you move from task to task to task and don't think about the outside world at all. Whereas I'm thinking about the outside world so much that I almost have trouble focusing on a task. So anyway, different sides of the same coin. But yeah, I think one of the more powerful ones for me is connecting with my senses. So if I have trouble like being in the moment, being present around me, I just focus on listening to something around me. Or what do I smell? What do I taste? What are the touches, the feels? What do I see? And so by connecting to something that is physically present around me, that brings me into the moment and helps me, again, block out the noise or focus on a task or come back to where I need to be. Going to the senses has always been my go-to.
That's a great tactic. Because you're forcing your mind to focus on something that is presently there physically.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it helps put your mindset in the existing moment as opposed to thinking ahead, which is what I consistently get trapped in.
Yeah. So how often do you do that? If like your wife comes into the room and has to talk to you about something important, and you are right in the middle of a complex task, do you have trouble focusing on a conversation with her?
Explodes.
Yeah, so you're like halfway still working on this project and halfway talking to her, right?
Most of I've at least gotten to the point now where I'm like, hey, I got to finish this for a moment, and she'll literally just stand there for like 30, 45 seconds, and like just knowing that like if I can't like mentally shut off the task that I'm doing, I'm gonna have a hard time like mentally switching that focus. Because when I'm like working, I'm like so deep into my focus, like you mentioned, that it's hard to come out of it. So yeah, I think Jen and I have identified like the right tactic for us to not have me like get all frazzled in that moment. But yeah, it's tough for me. It's real tough.
Yeah, it's funny. So like even if you're in a conversation with her and then maybe your mind starts drifting back to like, oh shoot, like I don't know, what's their MER doing this week, or we got to fix like XYZ, and I don't know, try connecting to something physical in the room, and that might help bring you into the conversation. That's what helps me, at least. And I love doing it on the court too. Like if you're ever on the court and you feel yourself getting a little distracted, for me it's listening, and I just stop for a second and listen to the sounds around me, whether it's like the waves crashing on the ocean or the breeze blowing by me, or I don't know, maybe like cars driving by, and then connecting to something physical brings me to that moment.
Do people give so much slack to volleyball? I don't know the right way to say that. Like people bash on volleyball so much. You literally get to play on a beach with the waves in typically beautiful weather, and you get to be active. Like, how can you hate on volleyball, man?
I don't know, man. It's a pretty good life. I wish there was a little more money in it, but the lifestyle is pretty awesome.
I mean, if they would just make the courts bigger and everyone can serve hard again, that's it. That's my appeal to the AVP.
Yeah, but it wouldn't work. And now we're going on a crazy side tangent here, but it wouldn't work because the FIVB would also have to do that. So you can't have like AVP playing on a big court and then the Olympics going back to the small court. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah, because people really want to watch other people just dink the ball over the net, and unbelievable, Bring back the testosterone. that's my appeal, man.
Yeah, well, grass volleyball still has the testosterone, that's for sure.
Yeah, it does. It's a lot of fun. All right, man.
What else you got? Anything else on blocking out the noise?
Nope. I think that's a great stopping point.
Give us the 30-second recap on your major keys here.
I think it starts, if you think of it as like a funnel from the top down, you are digesting a bunch of information. Well, I think even before that, you're identifying what you're even trying to work on. And then you're choosing what information to even digest as your next step. And then you're filtering through the information you're digesting to find specialists in the field or at that very specific skill that are authoritative, that have good credentials, to know who to listen to, like good mentors in that space, and that are also just good, genuine people, come across as good, genuine people. And then from there, you're applying it in experimenting, failing fast and cheap in your day-to-day life. So experiment with it, have fun, don't get stuck on it too long, but also don't just give up in 30 seconds. Have a good balance with your experimentation, that it might feel funky for a little bit, doing things differently, and figure out what works for you, and then, kind of drill it into yourself, whatever that skill or business career thing that you want to improve on. So I think it's just taking it from the identifying of the problem all the way through addressing it and shutting out the noise throughout that process. We're going through essentially a multi-layered filtering process.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
How's that? Was that good?
It was pretty complicated, but I think we got there.
Yeah.
I was too distracted. I had to start focusing on the sounds around me. I lost it.
The pure silence.
I'll close us out with a quote. I got one behind me here by my guy, Winston Churchill. He's been a frequent visitor of the quote section of this podcast. So, success. He said, "What is success? Success is failing over and over again with no loss of enthusiasm."
Love that.
I expected a little more out of you on that one. I thought that was a good one.
It's a great one.
Just say
nothing else to say
enthusiastic
about it.
All right, great. Cool. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you to Chief Marketing Dad Digital Position for presenting this podcast, and we will see you guys on the next one. You.